What if you can revolutionize your metal mixes just using 2 EQs? Let's discuss. All right, welcome back to another video, guys. Today I'm going to show you how I mix an entire song using only 2 kinds of EQs. That is all you need. You need some kind of analog EQ and some kind of digital EQ. So we're working with a song that I mixed for a client a couple weeks back. And let's take a look at what's on each individual drum channel, and I'll show you exactly which EQs were used. Starting with my kick drum, I have an SSL style EQ just right here. That's usually how I start, is by boosting something and cutting away with this SSL. And then usually once I run out of the bands, which they only really have 4 on SSL channels. So once I run out of those 4 bands, I jump over and I start using a digital EQ. Let's take a look at what I have on the snare. Snare top, snare bottom, and snare sample. If you take a look, there's only one EQ on the snare top, which is the SSL channel. On the snare bottom, same thing, only one EQ. And on the snare sample, just an SSL channel. Now, if we take a look at my toms, you can see here, I don't even have the SSL channels turned on the individual channels, but I do have the digital EQs, or fab filter in this instance, turned on, doing a lot of cutting. And then if you look over to my tom bus right here, I do have an SSL style EQ. This is the one from Waves. And I am boosting about, I don't know, 6 dB of 8K, something like that. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's really that simple. Let's go ahead and check out another section of my drum mix. This is fab filter again on my overhead channel, cutting out some stuff I didn't like, boosting some of the snare frequencies that I wanted to increase in the overheads. And then here you go. Look, here's a nice little shelf at 9 to 10K, boosting what, 2.5 dB, cutting about 500 hertz on that. The rest is just compression and some saturation and some limiting to control the snare peaks. So let's take a listen to how all my drums sound with that EQ. And again, I'm only using 2 EQs pretty much across the board for this entire drum mix. So pretty standard. Let's jump over to bassland. Oh, look, fab filter again. On my bass DI, I'm cutting everything above 500 hertz, and that's it. On my bass distortion track, I have the built-in EQ from Hellraiser. What am I cutting here? About 2.5K, something like that. Just, you know, some weird little clacky frequencies that were going on. Let's see if I'm using the analog. Yeah, I guess I am. So with the analog, it's because it's built in. I just decided to use this one. I'm cutting everything above 4,000 hertz. And then I'm cutting everything below 125 hertz, as I just want the DI track to be mainly the bass versus the distorted bass. All right, let's see here. So SSL channel, classic again. I'm boosting 1.5K, 11 dB. I like that growl. So a lot of that growl resides in that 1K area. I'm cutting about 3K, which can get a little harsh sometimes. I'm cutting about 360 hertz, which is a lot of mud and box. And then I'm boosting a ton of 80 hertz. Here's a low cut at 60 hertz to make room for my kick drum. And then I'm shaving everything off above 8K just as a safety net. And then moving from there, look, lo and behold, there is my fab filter. So the rest of the plugins that you see here are just saturation and compression. And then that's pretty much it. Let's check out how the bass sounds. Now let me bypass the SSL EQ here. It's a little weak and anemic, but if I pop that back in, and now check out the fab filter. Man, that's really crazy. I mean, like if I bypass that, it just turns into this farty mess. And I know it sounds a little weird if I push it back in and then, you know, it sounds like a lot of those rumbly frequencies are being taken out, like a lot of the power. But those frequencies right here around 100 hertz, that is what was making my mixes sound super congested. I never understood that. So finally I saw Josh Middleton do that on Nail the Mix, and I tried it out on the couple mixes I did for a few clients, and it was the shit. My entire mix started to sound a lot clearer. I sent it to my family to review the mix for me before I sent it out to the client, and they told me it was one of the best ones I've done so far. All right, so that's bass. Let's check out guitar. All right, so again, SSL channel. What am I doing here? I'm cutting 70 hertz. I'm cutting 12K, boosting like 2.5K for like a dB. That's it. Let's check out the fab filter. I'm cutting out some harsh frequencies at 3.6K, and that is it. There is no other EQ in my guitar chain. Just a limiter, some saturation, a bit of character compression, and that's it. So let's check out the guitars. I'm gonna bypass the EQ and then I'm gonna pop it back in, starting with the SSL. So it's not really changing the tone. I'm just cleaning up a little bit of the lows, making sure that none of the high end is getting a little too gritty, and a slight boost at 2.5K just to have it cut a little bit. Now let's go ahead and pop in the fab filter. If you're having difficulty hearing that, let me go ahead and solo it for you guys. That frequency is a little bit spiky. So let's check out the marriage between the low end of the guitars and the bass guitars just using those two EQs. I mean, that sounds massive. It sounds absolutely massive. Yeah, it sounds great. Okay, let's check out what I got in vocal land. All right, so I got an SSL style EQ, and I think that's actually it. Oh no, and I have a digital EQ right here. Just cutting out some low mids that are really kind of weird. But the SSL style EQ, I mean, it's just really like two moves. Boosting 7.5K for like 6 dB, boosting 4K at 3 dB, cutting out some 185 hertz. There was some low end weirdness that was going on there. I'm making sure 100 hertz and below is unobstructed for the bass and the kick. And then making sure that 12K and above is unobstructed for the overheads and the cymbals and all that stuff, the super high end stuff. Let's go ahead and take a listen to how all that sounds together.
It's cool and calm. Within this room, we're safe and bold. I'll keep you warm, I'll keep you tight until the morning brings.
There's a distortion on here because the vocalist, although he's good, I wanted him to sound really aggressive. So let me go ahead and show you what the vocal sounds completely dry without any EQ.
Hush, now, my dear. Close your eyes and let the darkness fill the sky.
Let's go ahead and pop in the EQ.
Hush, now, my dear. Close your eyes and let the darkness fill the sky.
And again, I only was able to accomplish that with just one EQ. I didn't have to do anything else. Again, I mean, really, the only other plugins in this chain are a compressor, my de-esser, and then a limiter to control peaks. So let's take a listen to all of that in the mix. And that is it, guys. I was able to get all of that sound and all of that shaping done with just 2 EQs. Let's just go over it really quick again. I'm using an SSL style EQ or whatever analog style EQ of your choice. You could do the same thing, but I highly recommend some kind of SSL style channel strip analog EQ and then a digital EQ. Stop overcomplicating things and just slamming it with a bunch of EQ moves and dips and cuts and all this crazy shit. Just make broad sculpting moves, find problem areas that you find that are problematic, cut those out until they're gone, and then that's it. You don't have to use any more EQs. If you need to use 5 EQs to get the sound that you hear in your head, you're doing something wrong. You're either having issues on the recording side, or you just don't know the basic principles of frequency isolation and just learning to train your ears to find problems. But less is often more here. The more you start mangling things, the more I noticed that it starts to sound anemic. Now, another quick tip before I let you guys go is to use reference tracks when you're mixing. I made a whole entire video, which I'll put up here somewhere, to show you guys how I use reference tracks to make sure that my mixes are on point, specifically regarding low end, but I do check them for high end, I check them for mid range and all of that. And then by learning what pro mixes sound on your system, you're gonna be able to make much better decisions as to what needs to be cut and what needs to be left alone. So if you found this video helpful, give me a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you would like for me to work on your music, shoot me an email on divinemotherstudios@gmail.com. Catch you guys in the next one.